Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it started. Okay, so hi Sasha, welcome. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time out to talk to us today. Um, we'll start the interview with you just introducing yourself, just telling us a bit about who you are.
Cool. Thank you, Adiola. It's actually an honor to be interviewed. So I, Sasha Jan, I did my MA at Goldsmiths last year in virtual and augmented reality. Before that, I studied costume and set design at Central St. Martin's, and then I in art history. And then I jumped on the virtual reality bandwagon. Now I work in an advertising agency as a junior designer. And so what I do now in an ad agency, half the time I'm working on design stuff, the other half of the time we're looking into how we procure more AR and VR, more tech-based work for advertising. But that's the idea, really.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And the reason we're actually interviewing is because you wrote was it a paper, a research paper that got accepted into the IEEE VR. Uh,
Yes,
so congratulations on that, first of all. And could you tell us a bit
thank you
more
so
about
much.
the organization and what it means to have your paper accepted?
Yeah, sure. So the IEEE conference is one of the biggest conference for VR, AR, XR, and sort of 3D interfaces. And I didn't realize how big it was. I sort of note that it's kind of important, but actually, it's been on since 1993, since the beginning of VR research, and it gathers scientists, engineers, artists, and a whole load of people who are interested in XR technology. What it is, because it took part, it happened online this year. So I think in real life you would have gone to workshops and conferences, and it's sort of any conference you imagine, but online this year it's a little bit hectic, sort of getting lost at Zoom meeting rooms. Four of them, and then you've got your workshops, which are really amazing, and then there are paper presentations by researchers or PhD students. Actually, one of my classmates, Fang, who I think you're speaking to as well, she has her paper submission, so she spoke for 10 minutes about her current research, which was fab. And then you have the poster sessions, which is what I went to. The poster session is essentially, it actually takes place in this virtual environment where you get a booth in front of your expo hall, and you stand there and you present your poster, your work, and then people ask you questions, you talk to them about your research. There are lots of posters during the IEEE conference, and it's a great way for people to see, what are people doing, what are people researching. So my paper was based on my thesis.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. Yeah, so tell us a bit more about your thesis and what that was about.
So my thesis is on, it's called rereading the narrative paradox for virtual reality theatre, and it sounds like a really fancy name. Basically, it's looking at how the immersive characteristics of VR might affect a theatre narrative. So I've always been very, very interested in how theatre happens in virtual reality. If
Mhm.
you're interested in things like immersive theatre, like Punch Drunk, where people run around and try to, it's sort of like, do you know much about immersive theatre?
No, I don't. That's why this is so interesting to me to talk you all about your different papers. But go on, educate me, tell me.
I can rant on, but I'll be brief. So, traditional theatre, you sit and you watch a performance happen in front of you. With immersive theatre, that's not VR yet, that's still in real life. You go to these sort of events or venues where there are things happening in different places at the same time, and you're chasing the actors around, you're trying to unlock the story for yourself. It's
Mhm.
not told in a linear fashion, and almost all the time you have to be walking around, be physical. And it's very interesting when people start bringing theatre into virtual reality. What is it going to look like? Are we going to, go into VR, sit down and watch virtual actors perform in front of us? Or are we sort of, because everything's done in code, or could it be like a video game? Are we facing real actors? So that's a very, not many people, not many scientists have done research in theatre. I think part of the reason is that people tend to think theatre is a very subjective subject. And the ways you describe it is also very subjective. It's organized by themes. But actually, with the rise of these VR theatrical performances, you want to have some way of talking about them, some way of sort of qualitatively, never get the word right, quantitatively, sorry, to do with numbers, quantitatively assessing virtual reality theatre. And so so my thesis, the first part is to explore how people talk about it in the science, with science papers. And what you find is that because VR theatre is so new and it comes from theatre studies, video games, and virtual environment studies, people use the same words like immersion or presence, but they mean different things.
Okay.
And so the first part is to organize that vocabulary and try to have a common ground. So when we say something, this is what we mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, there isn't much sort of scientific data on what VR theatre audiences think about performances. And so this first study that I did in my thesis was to talk to VR theatre audiences and creators and ask about their experiences, and then to try and code them to come up with a conceptual model for VR theatre. So it's a model that runs on 3 axes: accessibility, interactability, and spatial representations. So with each axis, it gives you sort of from 0 to 3, it gives you a score. So you can kind of rate your experience, you can compare it at a glance. So rather than reading a whole essay, I feel this performance, let's talk about themes, rather you have something with numbers to compare it to. So it's more direct, and it makes it, I think, easier for researchers to compare and to assess performances. So that's part of it. And then the second part, which is to do with the narrative paradox, is so in a lot of role-playing games, there's this narrative paradox where from a creator's point of view, you try to have control over what you create, the scenarios, how it could play. They want absolute autonomy. So there's a tug of war between who is controlling that freedom. And then, which is quite interesting, I don't think there is a definitive answer for that kind of paradox. But so the interest for me is in virtual reality, you've got a theatre performance, you've got script going on, then you ask the run around and chase after clues, and then you've also got the scenery. Can the audience actually manage all of these things? So rather than saying, is there an answer to this theoretical paradox? Actually, can the audience do so many things at the same time? So it really is looking at, given sort of in a VR environment where everything is provided, can the audience manage to understand the performance and then have to run around at the same time? Your attention is divided into 3 different parts, or according to the papers, to my research anyway. So you've got a mental imagery space. So, for example, where does your mind go when you're daydreaming? You're physically here, but your mind, you're not, it's in a sort of mental imagery space. And when you think about you're in VR theatre, when you're in theatre, you're sitting there, which is static, but your mind is filled with different scenarios, and it's very abstract. When people say, did you see the bigger picture? Do you actually see the bigger picture, or is it happening in your head?
Yeah.
So am I making sense, or am I just rambling on?
Oh, completely. It sounds fascinating, your work. And I really do like the fact that you said that theatre, people don't really see it as something that can scientifically be measured or be looked at, which is very interesting to see now, to hear about your paper and what you are you propose to do and things like that. So yeah, it sounds amazing. Honestly, your work does really sound great. So what does it mean to you for your paper to be accepted?
Uh, for me personally, I think it's a big honor to have, to be included in the IEEE conference. It's definitely a huge encouragement to my work and those last few months of writing that thesis. So huge encouragement, and also being at the conference itself gives you an idea of where your research sits in that field.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people, for a lot of young researchers and academics, this is your first step into the field. Your paper gets submitted into the conference and then you attend it. And so, if you aspire to go into academia, that is a very good first step for your portfolio as well. But really, I think it's a really good commemoration of my time at Goldsmiths, because I was very passionate about the subject. I started my MA thinking I wanted to do something with theatre or performances, and I finally managed to do it. So I'm very, very happy that there is something to be preserved of that time, rather than that just being a PDF on my laptop.
Well, happy to hear that. And yeah, going back to what you said about it being a memorable time for you at Goldsmiths, I did want to ask you, how did you find the course in general at Goldsmiths? What were your highlights, things like that?
Um, the highlight, we didn't, for me, I didn't have one big highlight, but this is the most, I find the most fascinating thing when I talk to other people, you know, I did my MA during the pandemic, but we were all VR students, so we just met in VR anyway. And people are so fascinated by the fact that we do it. And it's true. So the first few months, we were in lockdown and we couldn't go to the classrooms, but we all had headsets. And so all our socials were held in space in a VR platform. And I knew a lot of my classmates through their avatars first. And people customize their avatars, so and then you finally see them after a few months in person, and you're like, I match you to you. You can you can tell the personality of someone by their avatar, and it's so, that is the highlight. It's so fascinating to feel and to get to know someone through their avatars, and then you get to know them in real life.
Yeah, that is such a unique experience. Not many courses or not many people on various courses can say they ever had that kind of experience.
I know, and then, but VR is such an interesting medium, because in my thesis research, I interviewed people, and oddly, people get quite intimate with you in virtual reality. Maybe because it's the safety of being an avatar, and that you've got this safety net, this distance between you and me. And there are people who sort of confess, if they go to Alcoholics Anonymous or they go to support groups. And then I've also been told, there are churches in VR. There are people who attend churches in VR every Sunday, and there
Wow.
are venues for that. And so it's, when you research, when you look into sort of very technical details of VR, you think it's one thing, and then you talk to the people who are using VR, and it blows your mind how people connect.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's something new. I didn't even know because I was speaking to Tara and Nima um
Yeah.
a few weeks ago now, and they showed me VR and I explored some games for the first time. And yeah, I
What
Tara
did you
was,
play? What did
uh,
they show you?
oh, I'm not too sure the name of the game, but there was like so many different equipments out in front of me, and I just kind of tested out grabbing things, doing archery. What else did I do? Played with some
Did
guns.
you
Like,
did you dance with a robot?
no, I didn't. That's
No.
a robot. No, I didn't even know that was an option.
They do a Fruit Ninja in VR, which
Yes, yeah, they were telling me there were several games, and Tara was telling me that people do yoga and things like that on VR. So to hear that churches are even being held on VR, that's just like a whole nother world. That's amazing. Truly, truly amazing.
Mm.
Um,
we
so
did a group project. Oh, sorry
uh-huh.
to
No, no,
interrupt you.
no, feel free, go on.
We did a group project on meditation, actually. So
Mhm.
for a group VR project, we did a meditation app where you are visualizing, instead of the traditional visualizing technique, you see yourself as, say, a bird flying in the sky, you're a fish swimming in the sea. And then when you take a deep breathe in, you hold your controllers and you can see sort of a breathing, sort of the sun or the moon, the colors sort of rising and then falling down with you. And actually, VR is, I think, quite a good way to do meditation if you get distracted, because when you're in VR, there's nowhere to go. You are there in the environment. And for people who can't breathe or who can't sit down and sort of breathe properly like me, then having that visualization actually helps. It's interesting.
Oh,
Is the connection okay?
yeah. Sorry, it just cut out that like last 5 seconds, but
Oh,
yeah.
no worries at all.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Honestly, that sounds amazing then. Is that like a certain game or like a certain different software that you have to have?
No, we just developed it in Unity.
Oh, right. Okay. So as part of your course.
Yes, that's
Ah,
part of our course.
amazing. Oh, amazing. Yeah, so I was going to ask you, that kind of leads on to the next question of how did Goldsmiths, if it did, help you in your endeavors after you graduated?
I think I wouldn't have got my job at the agency if it wasn't for this VR masters. But at the same time, I think it really helps. Sorry, you might have to cut this bit out because I'm just still trying to think. This isn't live streaming, is it?
No.
Let me just have a think. How has it helped my career?
Yeah, so like whether it be your future academic endeavors or even your career at the moment as well, how has the masters you did in Goldsmith you feel influenced?
Oh yeah, I mean, the course is very, very good for if you want to work at a gaming or VR company, or if you want to go into academia. It's
Mhm.
brilliant in the fact that you can choose either, but you're not limited to them. But having my paper submitted to Ieee, that's based on my thesis, and so you do have time if you wanted to go into academia to do rigorous research, and then the tutors are very helpful. When I did my thesis, it was with Sylvia, and it was also with Professor Johnny Freeman from the psychology department. And there were lots more people who were doing collaborations with our, we had guest lecturers come in and tell us about their projects. And then for their final project, a lot of the students were working with external companies, either as an internship, sort of work placement, or just doing a research project. And so you can easily go into academia, or you can go into sort of more practical implementations. And in both pathways, we were given lots of choices. And so it's wonderful that you can choose. And then in my ad agency, it's kind of less often that you see sort of VR, AR people in marketing. So that's why I hesitated a bit to think about the question. So obviously, if you're going into VR, AR companies, it's such a good feeder. Like there are companies out there chasing after the VR, AR students from Goldsmiths because it's such a good course and the students are really well taught and well informed. I think when you look at marketing or other industries, everyone is looking into the future and asking, how tech able do we have to be? How future looking do we have to be? And so I don't ever think you'll be out of a job. I think you'll be very much in demand, but it's where you want to take it as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I
And
completely agree with that. Go on.
and also with the course, it's a bit of a pick and mix. That's what I tell people. In the beginning, I was deciding between VR, AR, and the independent games design course. But because they both belong to the computing department, at the end, through your electives, you can do a half and half course, which is, I think, one of the most brilliant things about the computing department at Goldsmiths, because you can choose your courses and you build what you want to learn throughout the year. So I did approaches to play and a narrative module, which is essentially looking at the structure of games. And then I got VR on top of that, me up towards my VR theatre research. And other people have very different choices. You've got physical computing, coding for artists, a host of different things. And so I think there's a lot of freedom and flexibility in what you learn. And for the course itself, I think for my course that the tutors were excellent. You were getting a lot of support and that they were always there if you had questions.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I think Goldsmiths is a university with a wonderful learning atmosphere. It's very grounded, and then the students are everyone's chilled. So it's a lovely atmosphere to study in, even during lockdown.
Oh,
You know
that's
the vibe of sort
yeah,
of general vibe of the uni. I'm
yeah.
sure you feel the same way about
I
Goldsmiths.
do, even as a staff. No, honestly, it does. It is an amazing environment, I think, to both study and work in. So that's amazing. So, like you mentioned before, that you're in marketing, with an ad agency. If
Yeah.
you care to share, would you tell us maybe what are your future plans or your next steps after the masters? Because you did mention that having your paper accepted in the Ieee Conference is a big step up, um, if you're looking to go into academia and things like that. So what would your next steps be? Oh,
Yeah. So I sold myself to an ad agency for the year. Can you hear me okay?
the connection
Hi there.
staggered. Hello? Oh,
Fine from mine. I'm not sure if I'm sort of okay on your end. Is this good?
okay, it's getting better. Yes, it's getting better. Sorry, did you hear my question?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Yep. So the question was, what were my future plans
Yes, exactly.
after my masters? Yeah.
Exactly.
So I currently don't know exactly where I'll be 3 years from now on, whether I'd stay in an ad agency or whether I'd go back to VR and AR, sort of the proper circle of developers in VR and AR. I don't know. I've always seen myself as a sort of hybrid person, and being in an ad agency, their proposition at the moment is very interesting because you don't have a lot of marketing agencies who are trying to engage with AR VR tech. But for AR and VR to be promoted to, an everyday level, I think you do need more people to get involved. And so marketing, it's interesting. We'll see how it pans out. But I do my tutors keep calling me academia. They say come to MSc in a couple of years. I might consider that, or come back and work for, some VR companies. Might consider that. I don't know. I think there are choices, and we'll see how all these span out.
Okay.
But I'm
Okay.
cheerful about things.
Yeah, yeah, as you should be. You have a lot of different options, and the world is your oyster. So yeah, it will be very interesting if you do stay in the ad agency to see how they implement VR, because I definitely think it will be the marketing strategy in the future. Um, so yeah, that's really, really interesting. And my final question would be, what would you say to anyone who's maybe thinking of studying the specific masters you did at Goldsmiths?
I say go for it. Absolutely go for it. I did my research on VR and AR courses before I enrolled. And to be honest, well, I've only done my own course, so I can't speak for any others. But having been at Goldsmith, I think it's such a wonderful course. You have choices, and the things they're trying to push you to learn a lot of things. Even if you don't come from a technical background like me. I couldn't code or I couldn't make modeling and animation before, but the first term, even though it's really quite intense, they teach you from the ground up, so you build up skills. And I've known people who couldn't program at the very beginning, and now they're doing something horribly complicated in code. So I wouldn't disencourage you if you're from sort of a non-traditional background. You think, oh,
Oh.
I haven't done anything related to VNAR. I just played Beat Saber and I loved it. You know, still calm. There's something for you. I think it's before, so it's is it me good? Okay. Sorry about my connection. It's really not brilliant today.
No, it's fine. I did hear the majority. Some were just a bit slurred, but I heard the majority.
Is it good enough for your video recording? Are there parts that you think you want to go through again?
It will have to be when I stop it to watch it back. But I think everything is great. I think it was just that last part that was just a bit blurred. So if you do want to repeat what you said after you said, even if you just like to play Beat Saber, that's the part I got.
Oh, okay. So even if you just if you've just played Beat Saber, so even if you don't know anything about VR and AR, you can't program, you can't do animations or modeling, but you've just played Beat Saber and you really loved it, then I still encourage you to join, because they teach you these skills and you build them up and you can take them wherever you go, really. It's a lovely learning environment. You will learn so much in this year. And I think the cohort is very lovely. You will get a real mix of people. And that's the lovely thing. So you'll get people who have come from a very strong tech background, looking for creative. And then you'll have people from a very artistic or sort of musical background even. And then they're trying to combine their practice with technology. And so you get the best of both worlds working with these people as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. That's amazing. That sounds so great. Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. No, thank you.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best in the future. And again, congratulations on having your paper submitted. Do you know what the next steps will be after that for the conference?
So after the conference, I was told that supposedly your paper would be floating about Google somewhere, that if people searched for your paper, it would come up. I think that's where posters go, but I know sort of the proper presentations would have their own YouTube links. I think for the posters, you will be able to find it on Google Scholar or something. That's the hope. That's what we've been aiming for.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah,
honestly, you should be very
I'm
proud.
really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to tell people, you know what, just Google me.
Yeah. Yeah, if it ever does come through anytime, please do send it, and I will also link it to the blog that I will write as well. So that would be really nice for our current students and master students to see what past students have done.
Oh yeah, definitely. Do you mind me asking,
Mm-hmm.
what is this video interview? Are you going to use the video, or is it going to a video, or is it sort of a blog post?
Yeah, so I'm gonna embed it into a blog post about so we've been making videos about our students, current and previous students' work and their achievements. So it's gonna go alongside that. I can send you the blog page so you can see some of the past ones we've done, but also like our newsletters to keep students up to date. So that's why I said it would be useful if you have when you get the link to send it, so I can attach your paper as well for them to read and draw inspiration and things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll send you the link when I have them. Also, when do you need the selfies by? Let me go through. I've got some screen recordings of people dancing at the IEEE. So there is this function with your avatar that you can dance, and being very geek scientists, the only dance they provided was Gangnam Style. So everyone was sort of doing Gangnam Style in the conference, and I have recordings of that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Do you want those?
Oh yes, please send it all. Yeah, that would be
Definitely.
amazing. Yeah.
I'll
Thank
have a run
you.
through them, and I'll send you some tonight.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Sasha. You have a good day then.
You too, Adiola. Thank you so much.
See
Cool.
you.
Bye. See you.
Bye. Okay, let me